Greetings, fellow quitters, and welcome back to the Command Q podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Mari Casey.
And I'm John Pelfrey.
So we're heading into the thick of party season. Attending is one thing, but hosting a good holiday party is a whole different animal. If you're planning an upcoming get-together for work associates, friends, or family, how do you make sure that everyone is having a good time? Today, we're talking party planning, and a little bit later, we'll be welcoming back event coordinator extraordinaire, Kendall Gilbert, to give us some tips on throwing a truly successful soiree, which is hard to say. Successful soiree. All right, so we're a question. Describe your most memorable work party, John.
Oh, a memorable work party.
This could get dangerous.
Yeah, I never had any of those sort of crazy Christmas parties that you hear about in the advertising world. I wasn't in an agency long enough to be at one of those places where you had a crazy one where everybody gets drunk and does something stupid. Early on in my career, I worked for a big giant pharmaceutical company. And yeah, all of those were sort of like what you would think of, just like salespeople standing around talking about selling more stuff. It was very boring and stiff. And they thought they were having fun in their own salespeople kind of way. I used to throw a lot of parties when we had an art gallery. And we talk about this a little bit later in the interview, but we threw a masquerade party that was a lot of fun. We had probably one of our biggest turnouts. We had, I don't know, at least 200 people there, and everybody came dressed up with something, some mask, something. We had a station for people to make masks that didn't bring them. It was just it was one of those nights where it was like, we planned this out, hoping it would work out. And then everybody showed up and participated, and it totally did work out. And as the party planner person, that is so satisfying. So, I don't know if I could call that a work party. It was work for me. It wasn't for anyone else, but that one was a good time. We also threw one once with a DJ and some break dancers and some people that did graffiti. And that was a really good time too. Yeah. It was, that was a lot of fun to sort of like recreate an 80s block party. So I've thrown some really fun parties, but I can't say that I've been to like one of those wild, crazy, like everybody gets messed up sort of parties. But I was actually running my art gallery when you attended a giant party at the Cotton Room where they did a big, it was like a casino night or something like that. And there were a ton of people there.
Yeah. I've had a couple advertising like holiday parties that, they were memorable, meaning like they were fun and like fancy. And, you're like, wow, there goes our bonus.
Yeah, right.
There's still, it was fun. It was a good time and all that kind of stuff. And I attended a couple, I would call them work parties because they were for industry. It was like a award show party where you're out and about, and it's like you go to the event and then you go to the next thing, and it's kind of extends from there, and you got a bunch of different personalities, which is memorable because of that. And then I was just talking about this, but we used to do the first Uncompany party, which is where the idea of Uncompany came from. We're not the idea, but where the proof was back in 2012. When myself and a couple other freelancers, Margaret McNabb being one of them, were like complaining that freelancers don't get holiday parties because we don't have a business corporate that's paying for it. And so we were just like, well, let's put one on ourselves. Like, let's just do it ourselves. And, all of these ladies had their own superpowers. And so within a couple of weeks, we pulled together this party down in Durham, and it was right around the end of November. So timeline was very short, and it just came together in this magical, serendipitous, positive vibe party where we had like a couple hundred people show up from like as far away as Greensboro.
Wow.
And it was really the proof that I was like, wow, this is really a community of cool, like-minded people who are excited to do the work that they want to do. And that really became the, tipping point to be like, okay, this is an idea that I think should happen. And it was so fun. And it was such a great party. And it was memorable because everybody was so different and diverse, but all very like-minded in the sense that they were excited to be independent workers. But I thought that to me was really cool. And then we, of course, have done holiday parties since then. We haven't done one since 2020. As someone was reminding me, we need to get back on that this next year. And those parties also were, super, super fun.
Yeah. I actually attended, I think, one of the Uncompany parties before I became part of Uncompany at some point. I feel like it was at the top of the Durham Hotel. Was that a... Yeah, or it was right around the time when you and I met or something like that. But yeah, that was a good time. There were a lot of people there. It was hard to move around. So yeah, that's always a good sign. If you're at a party and it's hard to navigate through the crowd to get to the bar or whatever, that means that there's a lot of people there and people are having good conversation and having fun. So yeah, those were definitely some good times. So that then leads us to the next question. Would you rather be the host or the guest at a party?
I would rather be the guest 100% because
Yeah.
as much as I like organizing things and doing them, I still have this like, I'm an eighth grade girl. No one's going to come to my party vibe. And it just makes me so nervous. And then I'm always worried about everybody else. Are they having a good time? Are they having fun? Did they really enjoy themselves? So I would much rather be the guest that's like, it's great. We're having a blast. What about you?
Yeah, I think so too. At this point, I've thrown enough parties in my life. And yeah, it's much more fun for me to just be on the other side and go hang out and meet new people and participate and let other people sort of pull all that together. I will say though that the like ideation part of the party is the fun part. Like you're sitting around going like, hey, let's throw a party.
Mhm.
And you sit around and you go like, what should we do? That part I really, really love, but I'd rather other people put it together and then me just show up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, once you've done, I don't know, 20, 30 parties in your life, you're probably like, you either love it and that's what you want to do. And that's like, you could run and do that as a
Mhm.
business, like Kendall, who's going to be our guest here in a minute. Or you put the other side and you go, this is exhausting and tiring. And I'd rather just go hang
Yeah.
out down with people. Yeah, for sure. Do you consider yourself a good party planner?
I don't think I've planned enough parties to qualify to really answer the question. I mean, I'm organized and I can get stuff done. So I think that is helpful for party planning because I can be like, what's the vendor list? Have we touched base with this person? Do we know we have enough sodas? Do we have enough beers? I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I've done enough parties to like say I could answer that question.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do some more this year. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm good at the part of like figuring out how to get everybody together to have a good time. I can envision it. I can see it. I can imagine like the guest list and who I want to meet, who I want to introduce to other people, the music, the vibe, all of that stuff is right up my wheelhouse. And
Mhm.
that's a lot of fun. Part that I don't like is like the promotion part of it. The like
Yeah.
the getting people to come part that's when I like had a space and it was always on third Friday and it was like a standard thing. It was easier to get people to come because everybody in Durham was sort of geared for this thing happens every third Friday. They're already coming.
Yeah.
I could throw out some social media posts. I could send a newsletter, email out, and that was it. And then people would show up. And it was like, sort of simple and magical. If I had to do it now, I feel like you're just competing with so much. Everybody is just overscheduled and there's a lot going on. And it's hard to be
Mhm.
seen and noticed on social media in the same ways that it used to be. So that's the part that I think I would struggle with the most. But in terms of like creating a vibe, yeah, I think I'm pretty good at that.
I think that's the best part. That's the part I enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't allow myself to enjoy the rest of it because I'm so anxious about the will people actually show up?
Mm.
Because I know people will sign up, but will they show up? And that's like it's so hard to plan around people because people are so
Yeah.
hard to nail down as far as like if they're going to show up, what's going to happen? Do they really want to come? Times two, even when you charge money, people still don't show up. There's like, okay, well, it's only $15. I don't want to go tonight.
Yeah.
But then the hard thing is like you walk into a party where it's like empty. It's like walking into an empty restaurant. You're like, ooh, like what's happening here? So I play through all those scenarios whenever even like the uncompany parties when I knew we had however many people signed up, and I was like, okay, I've asked each of these 50 people, like, are you coming? And they're saying yes. I'm still like, are they really going to come? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's one where you need to know that you have a core group of certain people that you
Mhm.
absolutely know and can trust that they're really going to show up and all of that. It's almost like seeding the party with
Yes.
groups of people. And if you can get
Like
a
seed
handful-
fillers.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can get a handful of these sort of like key people to show up, then they're also bringing other people with them. And so if you invite and make sure to get the people who are also sort of like leaders in their own little groups or cliques to come, if you know that they're coming, then you also know that they're probably bringing 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other people. That's when it
Yeah.
really helps. So that maybe is one way to do this, is to like focus on those like key influential figures in whatever it is that you're trying to invite. There's people that like everybody looks up to. So,
Mhm.
like if I was throwing a party, because Kendall's so good at throwing parties, I'd want to invite Kendall because then I know that if Kendall says she's coming, then she's probably going to bring some other people with her too that would
Mhm.
want to meet. And then, so thinking about it like that maybe helps a little bit, but you definitely got to have like this like peer pressure, social pressure thing to like, I'm going, are you going?
Yeah.
Sort of thing, and create that vibe. I think that was so much easier too when I was like in my teens and 20s.
Yeah.
You didn't want to miss out. You had that like FOMO of like, oh, if I don't go and everybody else has a good
Yeah.
time. It does feel like the older you get, the less it
I'm like, I'm dead missing out. It's fine.
through it. Yeah. All right. I don't.
It is true. I think our demographic is even harder to target because we're super busy. It's like, I wish I could go to the things that people send me, but I have, club volleyball and tennis practice,
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah.
To take my children to. And so it's hard to nail down, I think, our audience of, I would say, like mid 30s to mid 50, just because they're in that life stage of busy family stuff or career stuff too. It's a much more demanding time. And it's like you have to be able to pull them away and then create a time and create a space where it's easy for them to get involved. And that's why I was like, I wonder if seasonally, if there's a trend that like party attendance drops off between November and March when it's cold and dark versus like in the summer, I'm much more likely to be like, let's get together for cocktails. So I think that'd be an interesting stat to see how that affects attendance.
Yes. Also because you have vacations in the summer. And so it would be very interesting too. Another important thing to me is you've got to make sure that you have some sort of entertainment if you're throwing a party of some sort. So whether that, we talk about this too in a few minutes, but, having a game, a plan, an activity, or, having live music or a DJ or something else that's also a draw that's like, oh, I want to go see or do this thing. And it's not just like, hey, come and hang out and we're going to have some drinks and eat some food. You can get that anyway. So having that extra little spice that make people feel like, oh, I'm going to miss out on something that's a lot of fun. That's also a really important piece. And I learned that through like when we threw the theme parties at the gallery, we would have lots of people show up. And when we just like put out some wine on a third Friday and didn't say anything, we'd have like the same normal crew, but it wouldn't be the like hundreds of people rolling through during the night.
Yeah.
So those types of things, we experimented back and forth, and we couldn't afford to throw the big parties all the time because they were expensive. But, you can only afford a DJ every now and then when you're in art gallery.
I think you're right. I think it's like, if you know what your audience is going to be, if they don't know each other, then having an activity is like so key. If they know each other, then they can just kind of come in and all have casual conversation about what happened last Friday at the carpool line or whatever. But if they don't know each other, then you need some kind of like, we're going to play. Like one time we did an event, and this was early on company. We did an event with the Paragraph Project where we brought people in. We called it Creative Chopped. And it's where I went to Scrap Exchange in Durham, which is this fabulous place to get all kinds of random stuff. Yeah. And each box had the same random items in it. So I was like an eraser, a straw, some string. And then they had rounds of things that they had to build this stuff into. And eventually they had to build it into a product and then pitch it back to the audience. Oh, cool. And it was hysterical. Yeah. And it was a blast. So like that was a really fun event. I mean, it was all planned around this activity, but then there was, team interaction and interaction between the different rounds that we had. Yeah. And I think that was really key for the fact that everybody was kind of coming without knowing each other largely.
Yeah. Yeah. We did something sort of similar once. I had a friend back in the gallery days, and she's so busy now. It's amazing. But Molly McKinley had this genius idea. She's a great freelancer too, by the way. But she had this genius idea to do, instead of doing a poetry slam, to do an art slam. And the idea would be that you invite 2 or 3 different artists in, and they would bring whatever their mediums are. And then you would draw some ideas out of a hat, and you'd do 3 rounds. And so you'd let the people that were coming in attendance write the topics or ideas down, throw them into a hat, pull one out. And then whatever that thing was, the artist had 30 minutes or 45 minutes to create a piece, really quickly, and knock it out. And so people would sit there and watch them create this thing.
That's
and then
cool.
Show it back. And then we would do like a couple of rounds over the night. So there was like a sort of a party atmosphere, but you could sit and watch the artists, and you could talk and you could chat while they were doing the whole thing. And it kind of demystified like the creative process of like how a person makes a piece, what a piece is, and what it is that they do. And of course, since we had so many artists, it was a way for us to show off the people that were hanging on the walls too. But yeah, so like Dave Alsobrooks did one night, and that was a lot of fun. We had him out there. So yeah. So we would do some things like that too. That was a genius idea. I felt like that was something that could have been built into a really fun series. But it was one of those like time and space things. And we did it for like 5 or 6 months and then moved on to something else. So yeah, there are things like that. If you have activities, if you let people into a process, if you let them pitch something crazy or limit their ability to do something in some way and then make them do it and get everybody uncomfortable. But then it's so much fun to see what happens at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun party. Those are fun parties. And I think especially like as people get older, like if you're talking to 20s and it's like, okay, there's free beer, some music, and a space to hang out, then it's relatively easy. But I think as people get older, and depending on, if you're at a party that's more professional versus just casual, then you have to think about things a little differently. And so you have to adjust your party and kind of the events around it a little differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's hop into our conversation with Kendall.
Yes.
What do you think?
Expert.
The expert. Yeah. So we're going to hop into that conversation with Kendall now. Kendall is a writer. She's an organizer. She's an event planner. And she joined us last year to provide some tips on how to set up more functional home offices, because she also does that sort of home office planning thing. She's just a jack of all trades and a master of several of them. So today she is back to help us quit throwing boring parties this holiday season. So welcome back, Kendall Gilbert. So we're here to talk about quit throwing bad parties. And the warm-up question that Jenna so kindly provided to us is, have you ever been to an awkward party? One where things just were,
That's a great question. The truth is that I have equipped myself to not be in a situation like that.
okay.
And the reason is because I'm like a great acknowledger. That's what I call myself. Like, I can't stand a lull in the conversation. So I'm always thinking about how to engage somebody so it's not awkward. So yes, I've been to a ton of awkward like parties, but I think what I do is I try to mask it by being very interested in wherever the people are, whatever the people are doing. I'm like, I'm here for you. I want to hear your story. I want to know what's going on. And I think that helps alleviate some of the awkward tension. Would you guys say that the same thing has happened to you?
Yes, I think, well, I've been in all kinds of different parties. We used to own an art gallery, so I used to throw parties all the time with different themes and things.
How
And
fun.
And I found that that was really kind of an important part of the party, was you had to have a party that had a reason for people to show up. And then they would dress the part and act the part and be prepared for that. So like we did a masquerade party once and people went all out. They just dressed up and it was so much fun. And the sort of the stranger the idea for the party was, the more entertaining it was.
Like
Part of that was
that.
art gallery, but
Yeah.
the part of it was also like, people really want an excuse to kind of do something that's not just stand around and drink beer or wine and chat all the time. And I feel like those are the most awkward ones, the ones where you're just like, oh, we're just having some people over and we're just going to hang out for a little while. And then you sit and go like, oh, now I got to introduce myself. But if you're wearing a weird mask or something, then there's always something to talk about.
Yes. I love theme parties. I think in college, I went to a bunch of theme parties and that was like my favorite thing, because I never went to a lot of parties. I don't go to a lot of parties now. But I agree, when you're in some kind of costume, it kind of gives you permission to be okay being awkward, because you're like, I'm in character and my character's awkward, or my character's now not awkward and bold. Or and I think that's also why, like, as kids love trick or treat and dressing up, besides the whole candy part, is it gives them a chance to be like free to be and do whatever they want to do. So I think theme parties are a fun way to reduce the awkwardness, because everybody's awkward. You're in costume. So it's like, even playing field in a way.
That's so true. Even like, have y'all ever done a murder mystery party? Like a dinner murder mystery?
That would be fun.
Yes, they're so fun because of that. I think people are like in character and
we should do one. That would be fun.
I know, for sure.
Yeah.
Get on it, Kendall. Plan that.
It's on my radar. Don't worry.
Yeah, I love those like murder mystery TV shows and stuff. So that would be a really entertaining thing to do, I think. And how does that work? I guess you could assign people roles, but maybe you just have them draw them out of the hat and then they have to be that person the whole night or something. Is that
well?
Kind of
No, it's even better, because I think you made a good point earlier. When you know what the party's going to be like ahead of time, when you're prepared, it makes you engage better, right, with the whole situation. So with a murder mystery party, typically the host gets the information ahead of time. Like, you can buy it as a kit in a box. Then you, as an attendee, get an invitation that tells who your character is. So then you're like, okay, I am going to, like, I am a flapper from the 1920s and my name is Margot or something like that. Then you start thinking about it. You go like to a thrift store and get like your little flapper dress. Then you're able to get into character more ahead of time. And your costume, obviously, like you said, Mari, it helps a ton. And so then when you get there, you're all in character already. And then you solve the mystery together.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is, yes.
Yes, this is something we need to do this year. This would be fun. This would be a good one. All right. So outside of those kind of, sort of more outside the box ideas for parties or things, let's go back to like the general concepts around getting together, getting them around a table or getting them, together. So how do you like to set up a party or a gathering of people? Do you prefer like a sit down dinner? We're all going to chat around the table. Or do you prefer the theme or some other way to get people moving? Maybe they're outside. I don't know. Like, what do you find is the best way if you're going to have a group of people meet together for the first time for everybody to get to know each other and have a good time?
That's it. Yeah. So I think that in general, having food does something. Food and drink does something.
Mhm.
There's something special that happens, let's just say around a table, around a kitchen island, around a coffee table with appetizers and drink, that people feel a little more comfortable. I think it gives them something to do with their hands, something to talk about, and there's just a level of intimacy, I think, that happens. So I always have food. Now, it might not be the best food in the world. There's a time and place for everything, right? But even every week we have a group of people come over on Wednesday nights and we've already eaten dinner, but I always have food because there's something special about sharing a meal or a snack or a drink that helps people feel more comfortable. So I definitely think that having food, something good to eat, something good to drink is essential. And I also think, I guess it depends on the type of party that you want to have, whether it's going to be like more formal or more informal, like a small just get together, or something, larger that has more of a structure. But I think there are two things that make it, like I would say, is the secret sauce. My husband is a musician, and so I have to give him credit for this. Music. I feel like having music can make or break your together, especially if people don't know each other well. Even if you don't like the music that's being played, it's filling the silent airways that otherwise could make it very awkward, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
100%.
A huge believer in music, and that's something I think people don't realize until it's missing. It's not like you walk into a party and you're like, the first thing you're like, oh my gosh, it's the music. But if it's not there, you might not even be able to put your finger on it. But there's something.
Yes. I went to a restaurant one time and I was like, what is weird about this? It felt really sterile. And I was like, it was beautifully decorated. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no music playing. So everyone's eating and it's completely silent. It felt like I was in the dentist office.
It's bad. I hate it.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in music. And then, in fact, our house, we have a small house. We don't have a very big house, but my husband and I, when we renovated it, we were like, we're going to put speakers in rooms because we are such big believers in music. But, nowadays they have like all this like Bluetooth speakers and stuff that, that are like just as well. Great. If you're wanting to elevate it. Now, John, this might be more, I don't know, this might be more like gender not appropriate for men, but I feel like fresh flowers, like, or a big element. I mean, if you think about when you get, like Maury said, when you go out to dinner, there's typically like a little, even at Chick-fil-A, there's a vase of fresh flowers.
That's true. Yeah.
And that really sets a tone that this is something a little more special. Even if it's just a small group of people, it makes it feel slightly more elevated. So music and flowers.
All right. Those are two really good suggestions, because I would have overlooked the flowers since I'm a dude for sure. But yeah, I mean, that does bring up a good point about setting the atmosphere, I think, is what you're like trying to create an environment and a vibe and a feel. And yeah, when you go music, and of course I have guitars hanging on the wall, I start to think about like, well, what kind of playlist would I want to build? And it would all depend on that, who's coming over and, the vibe that you want to set. And as you're talking about flowers and music, the other thing that went into my head was lighting.
Oh yeah.
Light, so important. I was at this bar in Charleston, South Carolina a couple of months ago. It's called the Seahorse, if anybody goes down there. It's a great bar. But one of the things that made it so cool was it was almost pitch black dark in there. Like that, it was so dark that there were only LEDs under the bar, and the bartenders had a hard time sort of seeing to make the drinks, but they could still do it. But the vibe was incredible. It was such a cool spot. because it was so kind of like dimly lit and you felt like it extremely intimate in that space. It was just you and another person. And so that sets a certain mood and a certain tone when everything's like really dark. And at the same time, if you have like bright overhead lights on, obviously that's going to expose everyone in a way that might be uncomfortable. And there's probably different ways to set all that up, but lighting was the thing.
No, I think that is overlooked, and that's so important. Even like lighting candles, that makes it a little more intimate and special. So I'm all on board, John. Let's make
not too many candles, though.
Yeah,
not like boys level of candles.
No.
Unless you're going for that kind of party. I don't know. It could be what you want to do. It's fine. But
actually, okay. So I think what we're all saying here is we're appealing to senses, right? Like even sometimes I'll put on even the smell, right? So like sometimes like in the fall, I'll just boil a pot of water with cinnamon and oranges and a little bit of nutmeg or something before people come over, just to make it feel like fall. I think there is something to appealing to different senses that make it more memorable and special.
Yeah. It's like the real estate adage that you should bake cookies before people come over to look at your house because it makes the house like home.
That works.
I guess it does.
I didn't even want to live here, and somebody put cookies out. I was like, I'm done.
That's what sold it. Nice.
That makes sense though. So I guess just think of each of the senses and try to have something that represents each one maybe, and then that creates the vibe that you're looking for. So, smell, taste, sound, touch, that could be food too, all kinds of things like that. Yeah, that's a good way to look at sort of the essential elements of what makes a good party. How structured should a party be? Like we were talking about themed parties, which would be very structured. If you were doing a mystery theater night, obviously that would be very structured. You'd have plans ahead of time. Everybody would come ready to do the game or to do the thing. But there's levels, I guess, of structure. What do you think about that and sort of planning and like even down to like where people sit for dinner? Do you plan and think about that stuff? I want these two people to meet and introduce themselves. And how do you go about that?
Yeah, I think that structure gets forgotten sometimes, and that is a real way to serve the people who are coming that they don't know about. But when there isn't structure, people don't know what to do with themselves, I think. And so if you can provide that, it again, like provides a level of comfortability. So I think that structure is always required, but the level of it is different. So it's funny because the other night we had some friends over, but they were bringing their parents. It was like around the Thanksgiving weekend. And so their in-laws were there. So we had invited them to come. And then they're like, well, our parents are coming. Are here. Is it okay if we invite them or shall we plan it for another time? And I thought, no, let's bring them. It'll be fun. But I started thinking about, okay, well, I probably, even though it's just another family and parents, I probably need to think through basic things. Like I need to let them know where the bathroom is. I need to let them know, all right, how are we going to do food? We were making all the food, but just kind of sitting it out and saying, okay, we're going to have, you can get your plate here. This is where, you can get your whatever else we're doing. Or we've made some appetizers. They're in the oven. We're going to wait, sort of like, I guess I'm equating some of the structure to communicating, just to communicate ahead of time a little bit, or like when people come, to set aside a little bit of time just to do an intro, to say, we're so glad you're here. If you need to go to a restroom, the restrooms are this way. We're going to eat in about 30 minutes so you guys can grab a drink. We've got some appetizers that are coming out of the oven, and then I think, so that even for a casual situation, right? Even for friends, I think it's helpful. If you're doing something a little more formal, I still think you need structure, but it might look differently. Like it might look like I'm hosting an ornament exchange for women, some who know each other and some who don't. So the idea is let's get people together who all go to my kids' school, and let's have the new people have an opportunity to meet some people who have been there a while so they can feel more part of the school community, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
So in thinking through, my friend and I who are planning it together and thinking through that, we're thinking about, okay, people are coming at 6:30, at 7:00, we need to have like an introduction time where we just welcome everybody, explain what's going on. We're going to have a game. We're going to play a little game to get people a little warmed up and knowing each other, since not everybody knows each other. Then we're going to do our actual ornament exchange. And then we're going to have something else available for people to do for the teachers if they're interested. So we literally spent like 30 minutes the other day just coming up with the structure of that party. It hasn't even happened yet, but it's serving our attendees by giving them options of what to do and when, so they don't feel uncomfortable. I think too, when you think about structure, thinking a little bit about your intention behind it. So like sometimes, you want to leave time for like a toast or a blessing, depending on how formal it is. And so those are things that you can, if you're planning a structure, you can think through to include at the right time. So you're making it a little extra special for the attendees as well. So I think, again, it's just about serving them and what can you plan ahead to make it feel easy for them to come in and feel comfortable and enjoy it outside of appealing to the senses like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. What I loved about your plan was you tell people when they first come in, this is the deal. This is when we're going to eat. This is we're going to do the gift exchange around this time, whatever. And that helps give people sort of markers for time. Because otherwise, if I'm just there hanging out and I don't know what's going on, then I don't know if it's okay for me to leave, if I'm going to miss something, if I need to go home early or whatever, then I can at least communicate with you ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm only here for 30 minutes and I brought my ornament, but I'm not going to be able to stay here for the ornament exchange. Because some people have other things, or especially during the holiday season, you might have 2 different parties on the same night or something like that. So it helps a lot, I think.
Yes, I think setting expectations. Sorry, Mari, what were you going to say?
I think it's all of us kind of want to be told what to do at a certain point, especially when we're used to kind of orchestrating so many things. So being able to know what the expectations are for an event also frees you up to be like, okay, well, all the expectations have been met. Now I can kind of do my own thing without feeling like I'm going to run out of time or I'm going to step on someone's toes. I think also I've learned this working with creatives. Like, you think a lot of times to creatives, like, one of the worst things you can tell to a creative is like, just come up with something cool. It's like it's paralyzing because we need structure. We need like a sandbox to work with and be like, do something cool inside this space. And you're like, okay, I got that. But I think just as humans, we like to have some kind of framework, even in simple tasks and simple things. I think it's smart to give that to people. And it gives them the freedom then like, okay, I can do something cool inside these expectations, which is a lot easier.
Right. It makes me realize kind of what you're doing as the host is you're really taking care of the people that are coming. And so what's the best way to take care of them? And giving them a structure is like you said, a sandbox for them to know what to do and when.
Yeah.
I think too, along those lines, as the structure of, I think giving an end time is really helpful. Now, I am not a night person, okay? I'll be honest. I love a good party, but man, I don't even want to, I'm embarrassed to tell you what time rolls around and I'm like, okay, I'm sleepy. I want to go to bed. I need my downtime. So I think, to prevent like parties from like dragging on, people not knowing when it's going to end, going ahead and like saying, hey, we're going to, this is going to like in the invite, this is 30 to 9 or something like that. Especially, some people have plans, like you said, John, they might have to go home to a babysitter or they might have to go to another party. So, knowing when something ends gives them, again, it's that structure of it and it serves you as the host because you can only go for so long. You only have enough steam for so long. And so having that end time in mind and giving that to other people gives you a chance to wrap things up, make it memorable for them, and then send them on their way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads us to another question here, which is, do you have any tips for making cleanup easier? So we've got it. It's over. One of the things that you just said about having an end time, in my mind, that makes cleanup easier too, because you can start to prep for that mentally. Do you have any ideas on that, on how to make cleanup easier?
Yeah. Okay. So I do this one thing that when I'm hosting at my house. Now, if I'm hosting somewhere else, then I'm sort of at the whim of what the resources are at that place. But at my house, I have these trays. They look like you're going to a restaurant. Okay. And, if you go to like a barbecue joint, they give you this tray with wax paper on it and your sandwich and all your sides are right there. Right. So I have those for many reasons. One of them is because they're easy to hold if you're not sitting at a table. And a lot of times we'll have more people than table sitting, so you can use it for that. It's the tray in itself. You can put everything on it. Anyway, it's lined with wax paper. So once people are done, we just pull the wax paper off and throw it away. Okay. Now they still need to be washed in the dishwasher, but they can all be stacked up in one area and I can just put them in my sink. And I have like a nice stacked to wash at some point or to load in my dishwasher at some point. But it's not all these crazy dishes all over the place, right? So that's, right. And it's not, okay? So here's the deal. I'm just going to be really honest. I wish I could say for the environment that I'm trying to conserve paper, which yes, I am too. But my heart is that I want something sturdy to eat on and I want silverware to eat. Okay. So I am not a fan of using plasticware or paper plates because they're just not as durable for walking around and eating or for kids or whatever. So I use these trays are like my solution that are kind of easy. Like the wax paper you just throw away and then you have the stack to wash later, right? So that's great. I do use all utensils, like all silver, not silver, but stainless, whatever, right? And then, but they don't take up a lot of room in the dishwasher, right? So you just throw them in the dishwasher, you're good with that. And then the other thing is I don't like to go containers. Like if somebody brings cookies from the grocery store, which I'm fine with, like, hey, if people are bringing things, that is like a generosity that they've brought, and I love it. But I'm going to take them out and put them on a plate. So the serving platters are important to me, right? So I feel like I use the trays with the wax paper for easy cleanup because I'm going to use serving platters and silverware for it to have a more special elevated feeling, let's say. Yeah. But I'm not having, it's not a ton of work because there's not millions of. Now, the other thing for cleanup that I do is we do a lot of like cans and bottles. And this is probably, in fact, I'm hosting a pickleball party in a couple weeks. And we have somebody that makes craft cocktails, which is amazing and very special and elevated. And the other day I was asking my friend, I was like, do you think we can put those in little plastic, think we can put those in the little plastic cup, like that are clear?
The fancy plastic.
Yeah. Fancy plastic is cheap. No. You use the stemware.
Yeah.
In some cases, people really prefer for that. But for me, I'm casual enough that I'm like, hey, let's give people bottles of beer. Let's give people plastic wine in these plastic little cups. They feel elevated enough and then they can all be tossed. And that cuts out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's also depends on how many people you're having. Because if you're having like 30 people plus, I don't have enough glasses for 30 people that are going to be people drinking out of mason jars at some point, and that doesn't feel elevated. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I think I love to steal your tray idea because I've used your trays and I've always been like, this is so smart because it's like when you're sitting down, you can put on your lap or you can hold it with one hand or you can put a drink on it and you have like a little serving tray. Because that's also hard when you're walking around talking at a party. And you have a cup and then you have food and you're just like, how do I eat and talk and drink? I can't. And so I think it's really smart to think through how people are interacting with food and people in the during the party too, because it then you have people having to put food down in certain places. And so it's smart to think through how everybody's interacting while they're eating your food.
Yeah. And with the tray, they feel like they're at a restaurant. So you're like, that's just a bonus, You're like,
and you don't want people interacting and not eating, but drinking. Because they're like, okay, do I choose to eat or do I choose to drink?
Yeah. And it's so much less food cleanup. Like one of the things about cleaning up is like, if you just take that wax paper and that goes in the garbage, there's so much less mess. When you said that, I was like, oh, that's so brilliant, because now I have a mostly clean tray that I can put in the dishwasher. And I don't have to like scrape food off and, and make that extra mess. So that's a really, really good idea. I like that one a lot.
We're all stealing it.
Yes. Oh, sure. Like that, when you said that, I was like, why have I never thought of that before? I mean, every barbecue restaurant you go to in America, that's the way they serve. They do it on purpose for a reason.
And it's kitschy. You're like, oh, it's so fun. You don't think of it as optimizing. I agree too with when people bring food from the outside to have some kind of a presentation and not just a bunch of plastic open bins. I also think having some kind of serving utensils. So it's like, we have a bunch of just wooden stuff, like wooden salad tongs, and they all kind of match and they're not expensive. And that was just because whenever we're going out and putting things in things, like I don't want to have mismatching. I don't think this is a me thing. I don't have mismatching serving utensils. So we have just everything's wood, and they're not expensive, but they look like they are at least consistent. And that makes me feel good.
Yes. And that brings up a good point, like the prep ahead of time. You bring those out ahead of time. So when people come, they can just grab one and they're not like, where do I go to get buns for this or whatever?
Yeah. And having the tongs and everything. I think one of the things that it gets very awkward is if you have a lot of food and there's one set of tongs and then there's like 6 different platters of things.
Who gets it first?
Yeah. And where do I dip this? And can I cross-contaminate the food? But then people might have allergies, but then I have to use my fingers for this thing. And how do you get the chips out of the bowl? And solving all of those little things, because that part, honestly, makes me more apprehensive and nervous than almost anything else, because I know people have food allergies and I know people are sensitive in different ways to germs, or I don't want to spread my germs to someone else if I might be sick or whatever, or accidentally sick and I don't know it. All of those things have really crept into our consciousness over the last few years since COVID too.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to add, so we've talked about just the general atmosphere of party, but I think one of the questions that we hadn't chatted about it was just, I think it's interesting when you're organizing a party, besides just the general organization of the party and bringing people together, you're also kind of a little bit of like, we call it like a cruise director position. So you're like managing activities, you're managing, those people look like they might be arguing, or like, I think in the climate of just coming out Thanksgiving, we're in family time where we have families coming together from different backgrounds, and sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't. But what is your experience with how, as a host or a hostess, you manage just general personality differences at a party to keep it all kind of cordial and light? Because it can go really south really quickly. And sometimes, you're kind of put in that role because you are hosting.
Yeah. No, I think I like the term cruise director. That's great. I was thinking about it as typically, like I think about it as an MC, but it's the same thing, right? Like you're the point person that's kind of directing people and helping people experience this party. And so I do think one thing that is helpful is, and sometimes some people do this more naturally than other people, but thinking ahead about who's going to be there and who might find a connection with someone, and then being able to bridge that gap for people in conversation, So like, I do this all the time with Mari. I'm like, she comes over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mari, this is my friend so-and-so. She does marketing for this company. You've got to meet Mari. Mari is so cool. She, and then I go into like what Uncompany is all about, but it gives a chance for Mari to have a connection with somebody. I mean, not just Mari, but I'm just saying like, it gives a chance for 2 people to have something to talk about that is of interest to both of them. Mm-hmm. So you're not, to like think about that on the fly. So, thinking about your guests ahead of time and how they might have some connections that you could build. I try to stay away from politics. Like we just are in such a polarized environment that, and like my parents are older. And so they will want to talk about that a lot, like they listen to a lot of the news. And so thinking about older people, sometimes, that's maybe more of interest to them, or they're more opinionated about it, or it just becomes more of a talking point than it is for other people, trying to stay away from some of those like hotter topics, but not even bringing them up, thinking more ahead of time about, well, what can we discuss that's going to be like mutually beneficial and not polarizing. So, and if that happens, a lot of times I feel like this is like, I'm thinking about the Griswolds, from Christmas Vacation.
Oh, I just watched that last week.
Right. But like I had a wreath making workshop at my house last year, and a parent came and then my neighbor came, and I just knew their history well enough to know like they probably are in very different places politically. Sure enough, the parent started talking about it right away. And so I'm like, we're at a wreath making workshop. Why are we talking about politics?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say that, but I quickly was like, well, let me, adjusting, like, let me introduce you to somebody else, or let's get some cider, or let's get started on this activity, which is, again, like, that's why it's nice to have some structure, I think, in place, is because when there are conversations that come up, can be a point of contention to be able to direct the cruise in a way,
We're like, distraction over here. Look at these tiny little cakes.
Exactly. And there's a time and a place to talk about all those things, right? But probably not a party, or not when you don't know people, and it doesn't feel like it's a safe place to air those things. So,
yeah.
Or, like with family, you're just going to agree to disagree. So like, let's not even go there.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only time I think it's appropriate to talk about politics at a party is if you're at a political party, right? So like if you're at
Remind me not to go to those.
If you happen to be at a fundraiser for a politician, then talk all the politics you want to talk, because you're both there to support the same politician and the same thing.
Correct.
Yes.
But yes, same thing. Steer away from that. Religion would be another one. I would think like, let's stay away from religion unless we're at a religious party, and then we can talk about our shared beliefs. And there's just some basic rules of thumb there about sort of let's keep things light, and we're all here to have a good time. And I know that certain things weigh on people's minds. I mean, things weigh on my mind too, but I also don't want to bring other people down when I'm in a space, and you could do that as well. So just think about, there's time and place, and think about context before you open your mouth. I don't know. That's my motto.
And think about,
in general,
how do you want people to walk away from this event? It's like, do you want them to walk away feeling like lighthearted and happy, or, oh gosh, that was really awkward and terrible. I never want to do that again,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and your role as an attendee is to follow through with the plan. I think we've talked a lot about the planning side and being the captain of the ship and everything. But I think if I go to a party and the party has a plan and it has a certain expected protocol or dress or whatever, my role in accepting that invitation is saying, yeah, I'm going to go along with your party. I'm going to do what you're planning to do. I'm not going to throw any kinks in this thing. We're all going to have a good time, and we're going to follow through with it. Don't be the terrible guest that tries to keep it.
Don't take over other people's parties. That's a good tidbit.
Seriously. Be the attendee.
Yeah. So let's head over to the lightning round now. These are, in theory, shorter questions for us to answer.
Okay.
You can still answer these. And this one goes a little bit to what I was talking about here. And that is, what do you think about them? What is the modern etiquette for RSVPing to a holiday party? What are some things that we should do or shouldn't do? Obviously, I shouldn't say no to a party and then show up, right? I probably also shouldn't accept it and then not show up, and at least not tell the person, hey, I had a last minute change of plans. Are there any other things you can think of that are like smart etiquette things around RSVPing?
Yeah. I think it's always, the good thing is we are in an age where it's so easy to communicate, right? So just communicating, like, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Is there anything I can bring? I think asking that is always helpful. It just gives the host, because a lot of times, like, I haven't thought about what other people could bring. So if somebody asks, then it gets me thinking, okay, and that lightens my load a little bit as a host, right? So I hosted a soccer party for the parents and the team soccer team for my son. And I was just like, we just need to do this. It's the end of the season. Like, let's celebrate what a great season they've had. And I didn't even think about what other people could bring. And then all of a sudden, people started texting me and saying, hey, I'll bring this, I'll bring that. It was a huge help for me because it was totally like a quick impromptu party, that we So in that way, I think it's always good to offer. And then I think it's always nice to bring something that is useful at the party as a hostess gift. So I as a minimalist, I'm like, I don't like a lot of stuff. So I prefer something like a bottle of wine that we can open and share together, or, like a candle that we could burn, something that's, if you're wanting to bring a hostess gift, I think it's nice to bring something that you can offer and the hostess can share there, or they have the option to. Like if Mari brought my favorite bottle of wine and I didn't want to share it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
We'll drink this later.
Right. But generally, if the hostess has that option, that's nice because it's rare that, you always want to have more than not enough. And so thinking a little ahead of time, I think is a nice way to RSVP with graciousness. So.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. All right. So it's the end of the night and it's time for everybody to go home. What is a polite way to get everybody to leave? I mean, do we just start playing the semi-sonic song, close the time and everybody gets the idea and we all sing it together and then leave?
I am so glad you guys came.
Yeah.
It was so good to see you. I feel like there's language like that you can use that sort of lets people know, all right, it's time to go,
We should do this again.
Yeah. When can we do this again?
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll say, I know it's getting late and everybody has a lot going on. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah. Maybe that is also when you start to pull some of the theater tricks too. So things like you could change the lighting to let people know.
Turn it on really bright.
Turn it on really bright. Like they do at the theater.
Turn the music off. Like, you're like, we're done here.
They're washing dishes.
Or I was joking about the Semisonic song, but maybe the end of your playlist are a few songs that everyone knows are like time to leave songs.
For us.
Yeah. There's a bunch of those songs out there. You could just grab your favorite like 4 or 5 and put them on the end. The lights up. Start taking the trash out.
Get into your pajamas. Make it really awful. Start watching TV. Put a face mask on. Oh, you're still here. That's great.
But yeah, I think you start with the subtle clues though, and then you maybe work your way up to, in the same way that like if we've all probably been at a bar when they've shut it down and closed, like they're really good about letting you know, or a restaurant letting you know a little bit ahead of time by changing a few of those things that like, it's time for us to move on.
Yeah. Well, and quite honestly, people appreciate that, I think. And it was making me think, I was recently at Juvala and they close at 5:00 every day. And I had just forgotten that, or I was with my friend or something and we were talking and the guy came over to us and he was like, we're going to be closing up in about 10 minutes. And I actually was grateful because it gave us some time to think about, okay, we got to pack up, we got to wrap up our conversation. And not that you should say that in a party, but something along those lines, giving some little clues helps people ahead of time, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to your point earlier about the schedule, letting everybody know, even in the invitation, the party's going to run from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Those types of things help too.
I feel like grownups get that. You maybe run into more stragglers and the younger folks as they're used to staying up later. All of us who are over 40 are like, oh, it's 9:30. Oh my gosh, it's so late. What are we doing? Why are we still here? We still have to drive home and then I got to like wash my face. Right. Dog out. But if you put a timeline on it, I think you're right. It's like, okay, this is supposed to end by 8:30 and it's like, it's 8:30 now. So we should start like wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that I think that once your kids leave the house, you suddenly start to stay out a little bit later. Cause I've noticed that recently, now that we're empty nesters, the feeling of not having to be home at 9:30, I'm like, I can stay out until 11 and it's okay. And I'm still fine the next morning because I'm also not like drinking too much. Like
you can sleep. One, you can sleep in. You're not getting up at 5 or 6 to get kids ready for school.
And I can sleep in on a Saturday or Sunday morning. And So you have something to look forward to there too. You won't be like that forever. I don't think.
That's so good to know, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can make it to 10 o'clock, then I'm excited.
Yeah.
Me too.
That's been one of those things that's really changed for us over the last few months since our son went to college, was just naturally we realized, oh, we can go see a concert at Cat's Cradle and the band doesn't go on till 9.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, but it's still fun. And we had a good time. And we got home at 11:30. Whoa, so late.
Mhm.
You know,
That's crazy.
yeah, it's wild.
That
It's
is
like,
crazy.
like a second adolescence in some ways without all the dumb decisions, hopefully.
I love it. It's something to look forward to for us, Mari.
Yay.
It is.
Excited.
It is. One day you will realize and you'll go like, oh, wow, I stayed out later and I didn't even realize it's 10:15. Oh.
Well, I do feel like on vacation, you can stay up later because I don't have the like, okay, well, if I stay up, like, I know if I stay up to like 11 o'clock, then it's going to make me tired the next morning because I'm getting up at 5 every day. So it's like my time to sleep is short. But at vacation, like, well, I can get up at 6 or 7 and that, like, I'm golden. So I do feel like maybe if I don't, once I don't have to be like driving them to school and have that schedule, then it like, the world's our oyster.
The party's on, Mari.
Party's on. Yes.
Something to look forward to. Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. I think we've answered all of our questions. We've chatted through everything. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time and answering some questions for us today, Kendall. We really appreciate your insights into this party planning thing. If people want to reach out to you, is there a place that they can go to your website or social media or something to connect?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy what you guys are doing so much and just encouraging people to pursue creative outlets. And it's so good for the soul. It's so good for the soul. But yeah, you can find me at kendallpgilbert.com or Kendall P. Gilbert on Instagram. Either one.
Great. And one of these days we'll have to play some pickleball together. I haven't played pickleball in a long time.
Oh yeah. Anytime, John.
Yeah. You can teach me how to dink. I'm a tennis player. I only know how to hit the ball hard.
Yeah, he would kill us, Kendall.
You're in a company. I was a tennis player and but Mari, man, she's really surpassing me now. She's like on to the pro level. So
right.
Well, Mari doesn't know how to do anything halfway. So I'm gonna go all the way.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
The intensity.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. Bye.
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 That's all for today. Thanks again to Kendall for sitting down with us and helping us throw better parties during the holiday season and all year long. So until next time, this is Mari.
And I'm John.
Reminding you that quitters can win and winners can quit.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Command Q or Uncompany.